Talk now to Professor Gwythian Prins, former consultant to both the Ministry of Defence and NATO. Professor Prins, thank you very much for being with us. Good afternoon to you. The British and Swedish security cooperation agreement is presumably not quite a formal promise to send military forces if Sweden were ever attacked, but it's symbolic, isn't it, of the way Sweden is becoming much more acutely conscious of its defence needs in the light of the war in Ukraine.
No, with respect, I think what you said is not correct. I think it is exactly a formal promise. If you listened to Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson, she described it as a bilateral strategic agreement. And Prime Minister Johnson made it quite clear in the press conference of which you just played a clip that the request for what aid would be required in any given circumstance will lie with whichever party it is that requires the aid. So it's what's usually called in diplomatic terms an all necessary means type of agreement.
So in other words, if Sweden were to ask for direct military intervention by the British if it was under attack, we would give it. Is that can we read that into it?
I think all necessary means all necessary means. And the whole point, Sean, about how we in the West talk about our deterrence is that unlike Mr. Putin, who likes vividly to wave his nuclear weapons around, somewhat desperately at the moment, given the degree of the defeat that he is currently enduring, we don't talk about what we might do. That's what makes deterrence strong.
In a sense, is there would you read into this in part that because there is now serious talk in both Sweden and Finland of joining NATO, then in a sense this is almost like a precursor to that, because if they did become members of NATO, we would be automatically all bound together, wouldn't we, in mutual support?
That's completely right, yes. If the Swedes and the Finns proceed, as I think all the indications are that they will, to make an application, then when that's been approved in all of the capitals of all the NATO nations, which I expect would happen, but it would take some time, they would then have formal protection under Article 5. That is to say, an attack on one is an attack on all. And I think that what's so important about this bilateral agreement, and I stress it is bilateral, it's between our two countries, is that it provides cover in this grey period. The Swedish Foreign Minister, Anna Lindh, has just been in North America and was making very clear in Canada that what is needed from the Americans is what they've just got, which is a similar sort of agreement, but not yet formally so. And of course, what is unspoken is that we, the United Kingdom, as the second most important member of NATO, we are also a nuclear power. And so that means that there is an implicit extension of a nuclear shield. And that is the thing which the European Union, for example, can't ever provide under Article 42(7) of the European Treaty. It is really nonsense for the EU to believe that it has a military role. And it would be very helpful if Mr. Macron stopped talking about that.
Stop talking that up and focused instead on NATO. Just in terms of the change in mood then, is this, I mean, has Vladimir Putin effectively engineered, more by accident than design presumably, the expansion of NATO?
Oh, well done, Mr. Putin. Yes, he's the man who lives in a topsy-turvy world, as you know, because whenever he's describing some horror that his forces are about to perform, he always says that it's the other side that's done it. Well, he said that what he didn't want was to have a strengthened NATO whose resolve was made firmer and which stood shoulder to shoulder with the Ukrainians in defense of their liberty. And that is exactly what he's created. And look, bringing in the Swedes and the Finns is no small deal, because both of these are countries with extremely competent militaries. They have worked hand in glove with us for many, many years. Mr. Johnson reminded everybody that the now famous NLAW, the new generation anti-tank weapon, is an Anglo-Swedish weapon. But if you look at the Finns, you know, for them, this must be seen through the prism of the Winter War of 1939 to 40, when they fought Stalin. And I think they see the Ukrainian war as sort of Winter War II. But the result is that a country of 5.5 million has a standing army of over 200,000. It has the largest artillery stockpile really in Europe. I mean, something over 700 artillery pieces compared to, say, 200 that we've got. So this is going to be a massive improvement in the scale of capability, and it's building a shield wall from the country of these Nordic warrior women who run all of these countries, right the way down to Anatolia and Turkey. So NATO, I think, has never been as united and strong, certainly not in my memory. And my time goes back to when I was serving in NATO headquarters at the time of the end of the Soviet Union.
So, yes, President Macron may have been a bit premature when he talked about NATO being brain dead. There seems to be life in the old organisation yet. Professor Prins, thank you very much.
I would take Mr. Macron's word on many.
Gwythian, Prins, thank you so much.